Hello,
Oh,
welcome. I'm so excited. Today I'm talking with Matt. He's an Enneagram self-preservation 6 and an INFP from memory. I think I got that
that's
right.
right. Yeah.
And I'm really excited to talk to you because you're technically the last type it's been hard getting a hold of a 6. And I'm curious about that, and I'm going to ask you about it. But before we get into that, what does creativity mean to you?
I had to spend some time thinking about this question in preparation for this interview. And after kind of being with that question for a while, um, creativity is something that I see every human has access to. I believe that we are created in the image of God, and God is the ultimate creator. And creation is all around us. Beautiful sunsets, beautiful sunrises, the animal kingdom, nature, human beings. We are surrounded by creation. We are surrounded by creativity. We are created beings, and so therefore, I believe creativity is essentially a part of who we are. Um, And I find it really interesting how CP Enneagram Academy teach that the sexual one-to-one instinct is related to creativity, or creativity is related to the sexual one-to-one instinct. And I find it interesting that for me, as a sexual one-to-one repressed, that's, it's repressed in my sequence. When I was thinking about, when I knew that you were doing this project, and I was thinking, oh, Samantha's doing a project on creativity. I was thinking, I've got nothing to offer. I won't put myself forward for it. And then you sent me and you got in touch with me and invited me. And my reaction was, I'm not creative. That was my reaction. I'm not creative. Um, so I don't know how much that was the self-preservation 6 kicking in, of the questioning and doubting of oneself. But I also wonder how much it's also related to the sexual repressed instinct. If my sexual repressed instinct is repressed and creativity goes along with it, then maybe I've repressed creativity. So even though I believe every human is creative and has creative potential, I'm interested to know whether or not sexual dominant people are more in touch with their creativity and how that works out in their professional and personal lives, and whether sexually repressed people are still creative and have tons of creative potential, but because it's repressed, perhaps they're not necessarily as in touch with it. So yeah, that's kind of my latest thinking on what creativity means to me.
Brilliant. Love it. And it's been interesting because I have mostly spoken to sexual dominant types. And
Yeah, okay.
the in one of the podcasts, Uranio Paez talked about his belief that self-preservation repressed people, sexual dominant in that sort of sequence, were the most innovative and creative
Mm,
because they were more comfortable taking risk, and they were
yeah,
less, that less fear of, um, screwing up or getting it wrong or being judged for it. Just made it easier
yeah,
to be creative. But I think they were talking about the concept of being innovative because, uh, you know, often we live in a world where that businesses want us to be more innovative. So there's some sort of, valuable product to the end. But I don't see creativity that way. I see creativity as just something we can all of us do every day at home. It doesn't have to have a dollar value attached to be valuable to us as individuals. And so I'm really
mm,
glad that you said yes to this, because I really appreciate you
yeah,
sharing that perspective. Because I know a lot of us would start off by thinking, oh, I'm not creative. And I know I carry a lot of that
mm.
around as well. I'm curious, what would you say your creative practices are? Do you have any way in which you are regularly, you know, expressing your creativity in some form?
Yeah. So for most of my life, I've been interested in music, and my dream was um to be in a band, to be a full-time musician. So I've kind of always linked creativity to writing songs, creating music, either in a band setting or by myself. So that is how creativity has mostly been expressed through me and from me throughout most of my life. However, lately I would say creativity's taking on a bit of a new understanding in creative thinking and
Mm.
working with the mental fixation of cowardice. You mean there's another option? I don't have to have every thought filtered through cowardice. You mean I can think of a best case scenario? I mean,
Mm.
is a best case scenario possible? And using creativity in terms of thinking, literally thinking outside of the box. Now, I'm not saying this comes easy, because naturally on autopilot, I'm going to worst case scenarios, and I'm kind of, that's creativity is repressed with the sexual instinct, and I've got that questioning and doubting of I'm not really creative, or that self-preservation dominance of I just don't have the energy today to do much apart from just chill. um, and this kind of perceived lack of energy coming from the self-preservation dominant distorted instinct. So all of these different factors kind of have kind of fed me a ton of lies
Mm.
about what it means to be creative, and I've kind of bought into them, not consciously but subconsciously. So becoming more aware of my Enneagram type and tendencies and struggles and blind spots, and the various growth strategies that are recommended for self-preservation 6, creativity, as a result of the growth work that I've been doing, and being asked to be on this interview and thinking about creativity more deliberately and consciously, and realizing what an asset creativity is. As you said earlier, creativity is not just about having a value in terms of I'm going to write a song that everybody loves. I'm going to write the #1 best album and it's going to sell thousands around. I'm going to become rich from my creativity. Creativity is a source for creative thinking, creative ways of being in the world, both personally and professionally. And it's a real gift to be able to be more conscious about the reality of me being creative and acting as such, and
Mm.
not buying into the lie of the ego that wants to
Mm.
tell me I'm not creative, I don't have the energy or the time for it.
I love that, because creativity it doesn't always have to be something that happens in the external world. It can just be changing how we think about things. It can be challenging
Yeah.
our own inner dialogue to try and do something differently and experiment with different. And when we're working with our ego and trying to release its hold on it, often it is just trying to challenge it and confront it with its opposite, so it can go, oh, actually, these two completely opposite things can be true at the same time. And how can we reconcile that, just to create some more space in that box that we live inside? And so
Mm.
I'm curious, now that you've done this reflection, you've sort of gone from thinking it's just about me and my music side, to thinking actually I do a lot of creative thinking in how I work with my ego. Is there another form of creativity or creative expression you're now seeing in your work or your everyday life once you've put it through this lens?
Yeah. um I think creativity has been something that um I'm just wanting to kind of grow in, and I've wanted to grow in. So I'm quite a structured person. I like preparing for things. I like having a plan. And so it's not necessarily been consciously thinking I'm going to try and be creative, but what I've been trying to do over these last few years is loosen up on some of the kind of, so for example, Sunday morning during a worship set, during a church service, I would have prepared the songs we're going to do. I would have put organized it with the band, and we just go from the beginning of the set through to the end. But what I've been growing in is surrendering my agenda, surrendering my plans, surrendering the preparation that I and we have put in to delivering, you know, some music for a Sunday morning worship service, and going, okay, in between songs, we didn't necessarily rehearse this, but let's just be open to what's happening in the moment and just lingering musically in the song, in between songs, and opening my eyes literally, and looking around the room and engaging in what Holy Spirit is doing in the room with people, with kind of the music kind of helping to facilitate an encounter with God. And those spaces have been really organic and have been really profound. So I want to grow in in being less rigid in those spaces and being more organic, and being more comfortable, being uncertain of what is happening, not being in control, being more comfortable not being in control. Not that I am in control, but I guess that part of the preparation and the planning is about wanting to have some kind of predictable future that I can kind of feel safe in, and not planning and being more in the moment and organic it feels a bit more risky, but it feels also more organic and kind of more real. Another example, that was quite a long answer to the question. I'm not even sure if I answered the question correctly. Maybe a better answer would be, in preparation for this, I had put a lot of thought into the questions you were going to ask. I had literally scripted my answers.
Wow.
And I was going to show up today and I was just going to basically read from the script.
Okay.
And then as I was thinking about creativity and reading from the script, I was thinking that's just not going to come across as it's not going to come across as natural. And so I thought, why not use this as an opportunity to be a bit more creative and speak more from my heart and less from a rigid planned structure that came from my head.
Mm, that's beautiful. Thank you for vulnerable, sharing that. I know it can be risky to
Yeah.
say, this is how I approached it, and I've doing it differently. So
Yeah.
thank you. It makes me wonder about sixes in general, because I mentioned earlier
Okay.
how it's been hard for me to find a six to talk to. And some of the sixes I've
Mm.
approached have said, no, or sixes don't see themselves as creative, or it's just too risky to be creative. And I'm curious about that, if that's an experience that all sixes have. And I know you're only going to speak for your own experience, which is totally fine. But as you talked about planning and preparation and structure and how hard it is to let that go to just be in the moment, it did make me wonder that could make creativity challenging to access, because a lot of it is just being open to what is happening in the moment sometimes, I think.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I, as I've been reflecting on this, I think I almost want to say, that children are possibly more in touch with being creative in the sense of playing.
Mm.
Playing imaginary games, uh, and just um, maybe children are better at being in the moment. Perhaps not necessarily every child. It's a generalization, but maybe there's more kind of internal freedom to be in the moment, to be in this kind of playing / creative state. And I guess for a six, if we're spending a lot of our time in our heads, worried about what's going to happen in the future, or questioning, for a self-preservation six, questioning and doubting, everything. Maybe that kind of serves as a kind of a limiting. It kind of restricts the flow of creativity, because we're not allowing ourselves, as you said, to be in the present moment. Part of the work for a 6 is that arrow movement to 9, that conscious arrow movement to 9, not the unconscious one. I'm good at going there unconsciously, but that conscious arrow movement to 9, and that practice, the practice of being in my body, and the practice of being in the present moment. And I think when we can get there, when a 6 can learn to live in the present moment, maybe that's where maybe a sense of safety around becoming more creative would flow from, perhaps.
What supports you to be creative?
Yeah. So if you were to ask me that question a few years ago, so I used to be in a band with my brothers. And in 2009, 2010, 2011, we had our own studio. So we had the environment to be, to play music loud, and we had the right environment. And I can remember one weekend I had Friday afternoon all the way through until Monday. I had a whole block of time. So I was in the right environment. I had the luxury of a block of time where there was no I didn't have any other commitments or anything. So I was able to be in that kind of childlike, free from responsibility. I had the time to be in the flow of being creative. And I think one of my better songs came from being in that environment, and came from not having that pressure of going, I've got to create something and I've got 10 minutes to do it. I had the luxury of time to just flow, flow. And the more I was flowing, the more this, the song just kind of came to me. I wasn't having to sweat to write it. It just came to me. And again, I think that's a credit to not having any pressure and letting go of the outcome, and just being able to be free in the moment to just flow with creativity.
Yeah. I like that. The
Now,
environment and time. Yes.
yeah, the environment and time. Now that is still true, but I don't have the luxury of the environment of a studio. I don't necessarily have the luxury of the same amount of time, because I've taken on and I have other commitments. So creativity has become more of a mindset thing. Okay, so I've only got 20 minutes. Self-preservation dominant instinct wants to tell me that I don't have enough energy to do anything other than what I've already planned to do. And my sexual repressed instinct is saying, why don't you bring me up a bit more to the surface, and and with that kind of be a bit more creative, a little bit more unstructured, a little bit more in the moment. And maybe that's also connected to my arrow to 9, just become more grounded in the moment. You might not think that you have the energy or the time to pick up your guitar now and just play for the pure joy of playing, but why not? Question. I've started to question my autopilot operation. Autopilot operation still drives the show most of the time, but I am becoming more aware of its tendencies and able to kind of question it and challenge it. But it doesn't feel comfortable, and it doesn't come easy, because it wants to go in a direction. I've got to deliberately try and go in a different direction. And once I've kind of broken out of that cycle, that pattern, I'm like, oh, actually, I've got loads of energy. I'm really enjoying being creative, and actually, I feel connected to joy. I feel a deeper connection to myself, a deeper connection to my deeper, truer self when being creative. I feel like I'm spending my time here on earth well, rather than going with the self-preservation dominant agenda of just do what you've got to do, stick to the plan, and chill.
I'm curious about creative blocks.
Okay.
How have you dealt with those before, or have you consciously, thought about them in that form and approached them in that way?
Hmm. In terms of going against creative blocks, I would say until fairly recently, I haven't been trying to fight them,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going with the theory that the creativity um, linked with the sexual instinct being repressed in me, because it's been repressed. I haven't been trying to kind of fight against not being creative,
Right.
because
Mm.
it's been kept down.
Mm.
Um, when I was younger, again linking creativity to wanting to be in a band full time and a full time musician, um, I I was more focused and I was more deliberate, um, and I was more intentional about picking my guitar up every day and playing and practicing, and I devoted a lot of time into that. Um, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily more creative then than I am now. The only difference is I was just focused. I was focused on that. That was my goal. I had a goal, um, and I knew that in order to get there, I just had to put the time in, basically, and the time and effort, and that's what I did. I didn't literally give my life and soul into it. I could have literally put all of my eggs into one basket. There was a part of me that was holding back a little bit, probably the self-preservation six in me that was not wanting to take too many risks and not wanting to. I actually feared success.
Mm.
um, I feared and fear success, um, or should I say, the self-preservation six feared and fear success. So it's been quite helpful to see it and to almost kind of detach from it a little bit and say, yeah, these kind of survival strategies that I've taken on, um, it's not that I'm necessarily a self-preservation six. Like, self-preservation six is what I'm not,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so it's been quite helpful to disidentify to identify the box that I'm in, so I can be conscious about getting out of it,
Mm.
and being more engaged with who I really am on a deeper, more profound level.
Mm. So for you, the self-preservation six strategy is to not stand out. Is to be
Yeah,
surrounded by trusted people and
yeah,
protectors, and be safe in a I don't want to use the word group, but it's sort of
yeah.
safe in
No,
a
it is
group in
no.
some way.
Yeah,
And
yes,
being successful means standing out from the group and being open to attack.
correct.
Mm.
When I was in a band, I I um I, I had front I had front man abilities, not like a
Okay.
Mick Jagger style. I'm not a Mick Jagger style front man. Um, but I had the ability to do it, but I wanted to be the right hand man. I
Mhm.
I didn't want to be Liam Gallagher. I wanted to be Noel Gallagher. As an example, I didn't want to be the one stood in front. I did and I did and I didn't. I
Mhm.
did and I did and I didn't. And so I just wanted somebody to be up front. So I had one of my friends at the time. He was kind of the front man, and I was just to the side. But as the years went on, and as I grew in confidence, um, I became a bit more comfortable in that position. But even now, to be fair, even now, that leadership piece,
Mm.
I feel more comfortable being in a leadership team
Right.
than I do being the leader.
Mm.
Standing alone, standing alone and having an opinion that might be different to people close to me or people that aren't close to me, it has been and is challenging.
Mm.
So I've recently started my own YouTube channel, and before in a growth work, I don't think I would have done it. because I'm, I'm kind of standing alone a little bit, and I am scared of where it's going to lead. I'm scared of the opportunities that might come from it. And will I have the capacity to be able to deal with it? What happens in this situation, that situation, this situation, and all of these things. And the more I think about it, the more I won't do it. And so having that kind of body intelligence of, it feels uncomfortable and unpredictable in my head, but in my body, in this present moment, what's going wrong? Nothing is going wrong. I'm safe. I'm safe. Let's do this.
So what are you most proud of in terms of what or things you've created over your life, whether it's personally or professionally? What stands out to you?
Yeah, thanks, Samantha. Um, I haven't created anything professionally yet that I feel really proud of. Um, I've written and recorded songs by myself and in a band context and with a band, um, that I am proud of. But don't, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying it was heading in a direction of becoming professional. It just never got there. It was on the road to becoming professional, but it didn't arrive there. Um, so for me to answer that question, it has to be personally. And what I'm most proud of personally are the many songs that I've written. I've started. I've got so many songs that I've started, and most of them are unfinished. And I know Paul McCartney. I think I heard Paul McCartney share sometime back along that him and John, when they were writing together, they just became really disciplined at finishing songs. You need to finish the songs. And I think even Ed Sheeran said something along the lines of, you need to write 1,000 crap songs before you can write one really good one.
Mm,
And it's that discipline of keep churning out the crap until the gold comes.
yeah.
And I think even the guy that created the Dyson Hoovers, he failed and failed and failed and failed and failed at trying to create this really good piece of kit until he succeeded.
Mm,
So I think the path to becoming a professional is paved with lots of failures, and lots of trial and errors. Um, but I'm a firm believer that if somebody keeps going down that path, eventually they will get there. I believe that if we put our time and effort into doing something, regardless of what it is, we will get better at it.
mm,
We will. Um, I kind of feel like I've detoured a little bit from the question, but in terms of personally, it's the songs that I've written,
mm.
and it's the songs that I've written about people that I love, and that's what I'm most proud of. And one day I would love to be able to have the songs that I've written and the songs that I still believe are in me, recorded at a professional standard. I hope that's in my future, but I'm kind of letting it go a little bit because I've taken on this Enneagram fascination.
Yes, we'll just call it a
And it's quite
fascination.
time
We'll just leave it
consuming.
at that. I found it interesting. Everyone's responded to the word proud in a different way. And I found
Okay.
it interesting for you that, because we know that sometimes the six can struggle to remember their own strengths and their own achievements. And I wondered if
Yeah.
that's sort of what that word almost set off in you was actually it's hard to remember my successes or what I'm proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Samantha. I think for me, it's the initial reaction of the self-preservation to go to instantly react with, I'm not creative. I haven't done anything that I'm proud of. That's the reaction. But when I sit with the question And when I reflect and I think, okay, let's go a bit deeper with this, and let's maybe not think about it through the filter of a professional or through a perfection lens or a professional lens, but more through what I want to say is more a connection with my heart or my soul, more of a connection with my deeper, truer self. Um, what kind of feels like it's come from a good place, or what feels like it's been created with the intention of touching somebody else's heart, or building a connection with somebody. um maybe I think I found it easier in my life to express my heart through song, through music. I find it easier to do it indirectly than directly. And again, I find it quite interesting how the self-preservation six is the most emotional of the three sixes. And also I think the INFP piece kind of helps with that as well, because I do think I'm quite a feeling person. And when I've been creating songs, and listening to music, playing music, I sense that I just come into touch with my heart and my emotional realm. But I don't know if that's cognitive emotion or whether it's actual emotion. I want to say maybe it's both. um, so yeah, being creative for me it feels like I'm in my heart space more, and I feel more connected to myself listening. I feel more connected to my emotional being and my soul to a point, listening to music and creating music. um I don't really feel like I've answered the question really well, but I'm proud of songs that I've written that are about that kind of connection
Mm.
with other humans.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think you answered the question beautifully. So thank you very much. And I think there is a heart
Thank
piece
you.
involved.
I think I've heard Oranio say about when people become more grounded in their body, it acts as a bit of a support for the heart, being more
Mm.
grounded. And so maybe that is a significant piece in being in our bodies, um, present in the moment, and that sense of, you know, nothing's going wrong. I feel safe. I
Mm.
feel calm. And so the heart space is able to kind of be supported, rather than going straight from head to heart. We need to go through the body center first, perhaps.
Mm. Yeah, I find that to be useful, definitely, at times.
Mm.
Absolutely. I think we can overlook how powerful and important it is to be connected and in tune to that body center. And most of us, even if we exercise a lot, can still be disconnected to the body and the sensations. If the heart's
Yeah,
language is feelings, the body's language is sensations, few of us still know how to listen to those and read and interpret and to be with them.
agreed.
Mm.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Um, yeah, I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
well, this has been great. Thank you for sharing your perspective and experience about creativity on so many levels. I really appreciate it. And is there
Mm.
anything you had in your script that you wanted to add that we've missed? Anything you want to throw in?
Yeah. Nothing's coming to me. I think the one thing I just want to say is a thank you to you for this series and the time that you've put into doing it, and thank you for inviting me, because I wouldn't have come to you with this, because I was questioning and doubting. And when the invitation came, it was an invitation to to grow, an
Mm.
invitation to become uncomfortable and to explore this topic. And I'm really grateful for it, because as a result of becoming more conscious and thinking about it more deliberately, I think I sense and believe it's going to produce fruit in the future. Yeah,
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. And I'm so glad that you said yes and that it has been an opportunity to help with your growth, because I know I've certainly found it healing, both speaking to you and learning from you. But the series as a whole has been very healing and helpful for me too. So, no, it's been great. Thank you.
Brilliant.